And there we go. So with that purification in mind, let's just ring this bell together. Let there be peace. Let there be peace. You discover that peace is what happens when you stop fighting. Peace is what happens when you let go. So peace is something that can come organically. Let there be peace. Namaskar, everybody. Welcome. Welcome and thank you for being here. So we'll do our meditation together. So if you want to take a minute to prepare. The noise you're hearing in the background, if anybody noticed it, is I just turned on the kettle for the tea water, so it's doing its thing. It makes a little noise. So take a little time to get comfortable, whatever you need to do. And so you can begin by just becoming aware of what it feels like to be sitting in your body. Check in with the muscle tension. Is there any unnecessary tension in your body that you can let go of right away? A lot of times there is. A lot of times we'll discover that and it's like, oh yeah, I'm holding quite a bit of tension here or there. And I can just let that go. And then you can check in with the symmetry of your body. See if things are relatively balanced. Not too much pressure on one side or the other. Balancing the support of your body. You can close your eyes softly to eliminate visual distractions. And you can let your breath just come free and natural as it wants to. Let it go in, let it come out. However it wants to be, but if you're able to breathe through your nose, that is helpful as we progress through the practice. But however you need to breathe is fine. The key is to be comfortable and to be able to sit through the meditation session. So if you feel sleepy at all or like you're dozing off perhaps during the meditation practice, if you're laying down, a great way to deal with that is just to sit up for a period of time. And if you're sitting, oftentimes you can kind of rouse yourself with a few deep, intentional breaths and then just return right back into the practice. So with that being said, I'll sound the bell and then I'll start to guide us through the practice. Follow the sound of the bell as it fades into silence. And let the silence be an invitation to turn your senses inward. Let go of the habit of the mind, which is to be projected outward, thinking about the world around us, engaged. There's nothing wrong with those things, but for now we'll just turn the senses inward and become aware of what it feels like to be sitting here, to be laying here in our own bodies. Become aware of the feeling of presence that you have. It's just helpful to get in touch with that. There's a peacefulness, a natural peacefulness to just the presence. And having established that sense of presence, let's bring our awareness up to the top of the head, to the area of the scalp. And just let that awareness spread through the scalp And with your awareness focused here, become aware of any physical sensations that are present in your scalp. So this is just an opening and an observing, and noticing whatever comes up. There's nothing that you need to be feeling, nothing you shouldn't be feeling. This is just about what you feel in the present moment, still within the scalp. And we're just looking for everyday sensations, temperature sensations. You may feel warm in the room or cool, or neither warm nor cool. Sometimes there's a temperature sensation, but we can feel that is coming from within the body as opposed to the atmosphere in the room. Sometimes there are sensations of air movement. We might detect those in the hair or on the scalp. And then sometimes there are sensations on the surface of the skin, a little tickle or an itch or a pulsation. So these are sensations that are naturally arising and passing away. And with our awareness in the scalp, we're just paying attention to them. Watching as they come, watching as they go. And as we become aware of the different sensations in the scalp, if you notice tension, you can just let the tension go. Let tension in your scalp leave your body. You just kind of give it a safe passage out. Allow it to leave. You find that you don't have to push it away. You find you can just invite it to leave and it leaves. Let that tension go and then continue to observe the sensations, whatever is coming and going. And then from the scalp, we'll move the awareness downward into the forehead. And as you do that, see if you can really feel the movement of awareness. There is a noticeable flow of awareness as you guide it from one part of the body to the next. So feel that movement down into the forehead. Feel that movement down into the temples. And you can let it pass down through the eyebrows and into the eyes. And once again, with awareness focused here, you're just opening up to sensations, whatever is true in this moment. And when we observe sensations in this way, it is very much a present moment experience. Because we can't force these sensations to be, we can't force them not to be. They come up, we observe, we watch them, they fade away. If there's tension in any of these areas, again, the practice is simply to release it. We don't look at tension as an enemy or as a problem, but we notice when tension is there and it's not necessary. So we can just let that go. Return to our natural state of peacefulness and stability. So if the forehead, if the brow is furrowed, or there's tightness in the temples, you just let that go. If there's tightness in the eyebrows or in the eyes, just let that go. And then continue to observe the sensations. Throughout all of these observations, there's this continuity of awareness. We just keep paying attention. It's not an uptight or an uncomfortable attention. It's a being interested in the experience. And now from the temples, you can guide the awareness downward into the ears. Begin to open up to the different sensations in the ears. And from the ears, moving the awareness forward into the face, through the cheekbones, through the front of the face, Now you can switch to the eyes and feel as the awareness flows down through the nose. It just passes through the nose and then it moves down into the lips and mouth and chin. So in all of these areas, as you move through, you're observing the sensations, whatever is there. And with these sensations, there is no need to think about them or judge them or think this is a good sensation, this is a bad sensation. Just let the sensation itself be known by awareness without any extra intellectual activity added to it. Just have the experience without thought. And as you move through, again, anytime you encounter tension, you're just releasing. It's a recognition of something that is unnecessary at this time, so we just let it go. It helps to soften the body. It helps you to be free and stable in your posture. Now from the chin, we'll begin to guide the awareness downward into the neck. We can start by observing the throat. Feel any sensations there. Sometimes there can be a tightness in the throat, so we can let that go. We can observe the sides of the neck and the muscles there. We can observe the back of the neck. Any tension we discover, we release. Just let it go softly, with a smile. Release that tension. And then from the neck, we'll continue to move the awareness downward into the shoulders. Feel the awareness spreading through the shoulders. Observe the sensations as they come up. And sometimes in the shoulders, we have the sensation of contact or touch. As we lean against the chair or we lay on the floor. Sometimes there are sensations of touch between our skin and our clothing. So again, just sensations naturally occurring, and we observe. And we let the tension go in the shoulders. Let them drop if they're shrugged. And then from the shoulders, once again, we start to guide the awareness downward. Move it down into the upper arms, the biceps. Feeling the different sensations in the biceps and letting the tension go. And then rotating inward to the inside part of the upper arm. And we just keep following that same process. Every time we move to a new place in the body, we observe the sensations, just watch them as they come up and fade away, and we let go of the tension. Our response to tension is just a letting go. And then moving to the back part of the upper arm, the triceps. Same process. Then to the outer surface. Same process, observe and release, and keep observing. Stay with the sensations, and observe as the awareness flows downward through the elbows. Feel it as it moves down into the forearms, downward into the wrists. And just stay with that flow, that soothing flow of awareness. Releasing all the tension you discover in your body. And then moving the awareness downward a bit further into the hands. And it's helpful to observe the different parts of the hands. Each part of the body has its own unique sensations. Each part of the body never has the same sensation for more than one moment. There are always changing. So we observe the heels of the hands and the palms of the hands. And then we can move around to the tops of the hands, observing them and the fingers. And then move your awareness down to your fingernails, the tips of your fingers and your fingernails. And just hang out there for a few moments, just observing, focusing on the fingernails to see if you notice any physical sensations there. And at any given moment, there are always sensations in every part of the body. Sometimes they're just very subtle, so it can take a little patience to become aware of them. So from the fingernails now, we will make the move up to the top of the chest with the awareness. Start with the collarbones, and then feel as the awareness drifts downward through the chest. You just feel it moving inch by inch down through the chest, all the way down to the base of the sternum. And then once it reaches the sternum, it spreads out through the rib cage. Just feel that awareness and whatever sensations it's illuminating. Let go of the tension in the chest if there is any, in the rib cage. And we'll bring the awareness to the underarms. Focus there for a moment. And then begin to let the awareness drift down through the sides of the body. Feel it moving, noticing the sensations, letting go of that tension, all the way down to the waist. And then once you have awareness in the waist, you can move it forward into the belly. And then just really focus on the belly. There's a feeling of rising and falling in the belly as you breathe in and out. Or there's a feeling of expanding and contracting in the belly as you breathe. So just be aware of the sensations of the belly. If there's tension, let that tension in the belly go. Just release it, let the belly be free, and continue to observe the sensations. You might notice how after you release tension in a given part of the body, that the sensations afterward are even more peaceful, even more stable. We are creating real stability and calm abiding in the body. Now from the belly, we'll move the awareness around to the top of the back, starting at the base of the neck. So when we make these moves, we maintain a continuity of awareness so that we're not getting disconnected from it. Feeling from the base of the neck as the awareness moves downward through the shoulder blades. Just feel this awareness, the sensations illuminated by the awareness, the tension that's illuminated by the awareness, and the feeling of letting that tension go, becoming more peaceful in the body. And then observing as awareness flows downward into the middle third of the back. Again, sensations known by awareness, tension released. Continue to observe. If you have any difficult sensations in the body at this time in the back, sometimes we do experience pain or discomfort in the body or fatigue. And this is a natural part of being a human. But we discover that sometimes it can make the movement of awareness a little difficult. And it can make the releasing of tension a little difficult. But what we find we can do is to become aware of the infinite expansiveness of our own awareness. That we are not limited to this very small part of the body, but we can open up our awareness. And awareness is big enough for any of these unpleasant sensations in the body to be just as they are. And awareness can be there too. We just allow as much space as is necessary for our sensations to be as they are, without clinging to pleasant sensations and without developing aversion toward unpleasant sensations. Just let go, just let go. And then move down to the lower third of the back. Again, just paying attention to the sensations, letting go of thoughts, letting go of tension. And then observe as the awareness flows downward from the lower back. It starts to move down into the sit bones. Feel that flow. Then it moves through and envelops the hips. Then it spreads through the rest of the pelvis so that you can observe the different sensations just as they are, just being with them, letting them go immediately, letting tension go. And then from the pelvis, we can begin to guide the awareness downward into the thighs. And the thighs are large muscle groups in the body, so let's spend a little time observing the top surface of the thighs. Just that top surface, all the way from the tops down to the knee joints. And if your hands are resting on your thighs or knees, you might notice that sensation of contact. You can rotate the awareness outward to the outer edge of the thighs or the outer surface of the thighs. Again, awareness of sensation, unconditional letting go of tension. And then with awareness maintained, we move to the underside of the thighs. Again, from the tops all the way down to the knee joints, observing and releasing. And then moving to the inside surface of the thighs, from top to bottom, observing and releasing. And staying present as we move the awareness downward through the knees. We have a continuous awareness of the sensations of the body and moving through the knees now, letting go of tension, moving downward further. Feel the awareness start to move through the calves. Feel the awareness start to move through the shins. You're noticing the sensations without judgment, and you're releasing the tension unconditionally. Observe as the awareness passes downward through the ankles. Feel those very subtle sensations. And then as the awareness begins to move down into the feet, we'll focus for a moment on the heels, the sensations there, and then moving the awareness into the soles of the feet, the sensations there, the balls of the feet. And everywhere we move, we're just releasing tension. This is our wholesome, skillful habit energy. Every time we meet tension with awareness, we just let go. We just release. And moving around to the tops of the feet, observing, moving down into the toes, then finally bringing awareness into the toenails. Again, this very small part of the body. Just hang out with your awareness for a few moments, observing the toenails, remaining focused on them. And sometimes you will notice, yes, there are sensations in the toenails. So from here, from the toenails now, we will maintain the continuity of awareness as we move back up to the top of the head and to the area of the scalp. So bring your awareness up there, focus on the scalp, and then this time at your own pace you can begin to guide your awareness back down through your body. So you can do it more quickly if you'd prefer, or you can do it slowly. But as you do it, try to move through each part one by one. You can follow the same order that we followed, just so no parts are left out. You can be with each part of the body long enough to observe the sensations and to release the tension. So move on through. You might notice that there are places where tension has returned. You just let it go a few minutes ago. Maybe your jaw's tightened up again, or maybe your shoulders shrugged up a little, or your belly may have tightened. So anytime you come upon these places where tension has reappeared, you can note that, be aware of it, release the tension, knowing that this tension is a product of some of the difficult emotions that we experience. If we have a stressful day, if we have a difficult experience, something makes us angry or afraid, we find that the body tenses up in all sorts of different places, in all sorts of different ways, but that the body tends to tense up and tighten up in the same way as a response to the same kinds of stressors. So when we become aware of these places in the body holding tension, we find that they are creating a sense of fear or anger or worry or stress, because they are part of the emotional experience of stress or worry or anger or fear. So we let go, we start to set ourselves free from those afflictive emotions, and we find greater and greater stability in the body. So now, once you've had a chance to move your awareness through the body, let's bring the awareness up to the base of the nose, and we'll start out by focusing on the little patch of skin beneath the nostrils and above the upper lip. And just focus your awareness on this one little spot. Just focusing it like a magnifying glass on this one little spot on the body. And then from here you can expand awareness just a little bit further to include the rings of the nostrils. Feel them as well. And then you can expand the awareness just a bit further still into the nasal passages. So now we are focused on this triangular area of the nose. And with our awareness focused here, all we need to do is pay attention to the movement of the breath. So as you're breathing an in-breath, just be aware that you're breathing an in-breath. And as you're breathing an out-breath, just be aware that you're breathing an out-breath. And this too is a very present moment experience. You're only with the breath that's happening right now. Breathing in, be aware that you're breathing in. Breathing out, be aware that you're breathing out. And stay with the full inhalation. Stay with as it starts, as it slows down, it tapers off and pauses. And then it reverses direction and becomes the out breath. So you stay with the whole out breath now as it starts and slows, tapers off, pauses, becomes the in breath. And just stay with the breath in this way, fully aware of the full duration of the breath, knowing this is an in breath, knowing this is an out breath, staying with it, staying within the triangular area of the nose. And as you observe the full duration of each breath, open up awareness to the feeling of touch, the touch of the breath. As you breathe in, there is a feeling of touch somewhere within that triangular area of the nose. And as you breathe out, there is a feeling of touch somewhere in the triangular area of the nose. So you're just focused on this. Open up to even more subtle sensations now with the breath. Breathing in, the air feels just a little bit cool. Compared to breathing out, feels just a bit warm. Breathing in, the air feels a little drier than it does when breathing out, where it feels just a little more moist. So we stay with the breath, fully aware, fully focused on the triangular area of the nose, the movement of the breath, and the touch and the sensations. And we just stay with that, cycle after cycle, continuity of awareness. And sometimes it's quite possible that you'll be distracted by a sound somewhere. Sometimes sounds will pull the awareness away from the breath. We'll hear cars outside or sounds in the building here. But in the very moment that you notice the distraction, this is a wonderful moment, a very important moment, because it allows you to move your awareness back to your breath. It allows you to refocus your awareness on the breath. And there's nothing else you need to do, just let go of the sound, return to the breath. In doing this, you'll strengthen the ability of the mind to focus and concentrate. And as you're observing in-breath, out-breath, in-breath, out-breath, sometimes there'll be a strong sensation somewhere in the body. There might be a tickle somewhere or an itch that you want to scratch, or sometimes a little ache. And in the moment you notice that distraction, just guide the awareness back to the breath. It's a very gentle thing. There's no anger in it, there's no frustration. It's just, distraction. I return to the breath. I return to the breath. And then as we're focused once again on the breath, anywhere in that triangular area of the nose, sometimes we'll find that the mind will just wander off on its own. We just notice that it's thinking about something or remembering, imagining. And so if you see that, again, wonderful moment, important moment in the practice. Guide the awareness back to the breath. Just bring it back. Focus on the movement of the breath and the touch and the sensations. And we can do this over and over as often as is necessary. There's nothing wrong with distraction. We work with it in a certain way in the practice. We just repeat it over and over and over. And over time, awareness and focus and the ability to concentrate gets much, much stronger. So let's spend just a few minutes together in silent meditation. I'll stop guiding. Everyone stay with the breath and the respiration and the triangular area of the nose. And in just a few minutes, I'll sound the bell to end the meditation practice. We'll take a break for about a minute just to let everybody kind of get back into their bodies. There's tea in the kitchen if anyone's interested. Please try to come back as soon as you can. But also, feel free to just get up and walk around a little bit and stretch.
I said, how are you doing? Okay. You survived yesterday, huh?
Well, Mona will just focus on the practice and the teaching, and you'll start to feel better as we talk about it. You always know that there's a bunch of people that love and care about you. talk about some things tonight that I think are going to be helpful. Last week, we've been going through this series on the 10 perfections, or the 10 paramis. And last week, we started on Sacca parami, which is the perfection of truthfulness. And we made it about halfway through that one, actually a little more than halfway. But so I have that handout for last week for those of you that were not here, and then I have a new one for this week because we're going to move into the next parami, which is aditana parami. So for anyone who didn't get one of these, and thank you, Cheryl. So this is last week, and then that's this week.
Last week?
This week.
Oh. Is that, it's 2 years.
And then remember with the lights,
This week.
you can turn the lights up higher if you want to.
You gotta speak up.
They all have 3-way bulbs in them, so you can make it brighter if you need to.
I think it's this week, isn't it? Oh,
It does make a difference.
oh,
Yeah,
that's this week, maybe last week. I gotta make
Sorry,
sure.
last week.
it makes a difference.
Thank you, Marlon.
Yeah, that's the other one. Okay, very good. Okay, now I'm confused. Too into that meditation. Okay. You were here, that's great. Let's see if this is. Took the glasses out of it. Okay.
Yeah.
How much was the
So I'll review a couple things as we're getting situated here. The stuff that we covered last week for Sacca parami, the perfection of truthfulness. And for a lot of people, if you think about truthfulness, probably the first thing you think about is like telling the truth or speaking the truth. But a big part of this one, and a very helpful part, is understanding the truth and knowing the truth, especially from the perspective of the Dhamma teachings. Because if you don't know the truth or understand the truth as a foundation,
No, it isn't here. Okay.
you can be at a loss. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. That's always a little tricky when we have two. So again, there's really 2 aspects of this truth. Speaking the truth is one of them, but being open to the truth, hearing the truth, understanding the truth as it relates to Dhamma practice, that's very important, because from that we get the teaching on the 4 Noble Truths, which is what tells us about our predicament of suffering in life and what causes that, which is craving, and clinging, and aversion. It also tells us that when we let go of craving, clinging, and aversion, the suffering that came with it stops. So that's a very positive thing. It does acknowledge and recognize that, yeah, there is suffering in life. But by recognizing that, it gets us to the and there's a cause, and there's an end to it, and there's a set of steps to end it. So it's truth, the 4 Noble Truths, understanding that, very, very important. And then I'll just share on page 3 of the handout from last week, about halfway down, suffering, it's a bold heading here. And I think this is just important and maybe helpful to you. This might be worth putting on a post-it note on your mirror or your fridge. Suffering is caused by craving for permanence in a world of impermanence, a self among non-self elements, and lasting satisfaction in sense experiences which possess no inherent satisfactoriness. And even though we understand this to be true, as we understand the Four Noble Truths, we still think and behave as if it isn't. And this is what's referred to as ignorance or delusion in the canon. And we all do that all the time in lots of little different ways, you know. And a lot of times I'll use the example of ice cream just because it's kind of part of my ongoing struggle in my life where I'm, you know, I try and stay fit, I try and eat right. At the same time, I really, really like ice cream. I mean, that's like my kryptonite. And so I know that every time I overindulge in ice cream, speaking, just a quick side note, a friend of mine, she had a book she was reading called The Joy of Half a Cookie, and it was something about mindfulness and eating. And I saw the title, and I couldn't stop laughing at that concept. I need to work on that, Joy of Half a Cookie. But when I overindulge on ice cream, I sure enjoy it. I sure enjoy the flavor and everything. But then, you know, I feel a little bad about it. I feel a little guilty about it. Now I'm going to have to exercise a little more. This wasn't the healthiest thing. I'm trying to keep my cholesterol, you know, I'm trying to manage that. This kind of thing. But we'll do those simple types of things over and over and over again as if maybe the outcome will be different. Maybe this time if I have the ice cream, I'm not going to, you know, feel guilty about it or have the, you know, the negative thoughts as a result. So if we do that with ice cream, I mean, think of how many things we do that with that are not ice cream that are even more significant. So we do that, permanence in a world of impermanence. I mean, we really do seek that the way, and sometimes it doesn't show up as like being blatantly, this is me trying to make something permanent, but I mean, we do kind of build our lives in a way where we're looking for some permanence and some stability. And when we really convince ourselves that, yep, this is going to stay this way, you know, those are the times where we bump into, but now everything's changing. And so to the extent that we're not prepared for that and that we're clinging to the idea of permanence, you know, that brings on a lot of suffering. And so we see that maybe in relationships where things start to not work out and a relationship comes to an end. You know, I think a lot of us kind of have an idea of, I'm looking for permanence in relationship, but you know, that changed, that came to an end, and there's suffering in that. A self among non-self elements, and what I mean by this is that we find a lot of things that we want and we kind of take them on as attributes of our own being, you know, like getting a degree, getting a certain type of job, you know, getting a title, maybe having certain material possessions or a certain level of income, certain car, things like this. These are things where we're sort of looking for something to build up and to boost our idea of self, but they're non-self elements. So it's kind of a tricky thing to try and make yourself happy. You know, this is me, but it isn't me. You know, the degree isn't me, the job isn't me, the money isn't me, where I live isn't me. I had a friend at one time who was talking about moving out to California to kind of get away from it all. And I have a good enough, solid enough relationship with her that I was able to speak, you know, kind of frankly and know it wasn't going to hurt her feelings because she knew how I would communicate with her. But I said, you know, the only problem about going to California is you're going to be there when you get there. And that's really what the problem is. The problem is not so much living here If only we could move to California and leave everything behind, but we carry all that baggage with us. And again, it's these things that we seek. And then lasting satisfaction in these sense experiences that possess no inherent satisfactoriness. Again, this kind of goes back to the ice cream, or you could use it in the relationship example, or you could use it in the career example, or just experiences where I've had a few meditation experiences that have been so powerful and so wonderful that the next time I've gone into meditation, I've been like hunting for it, And so that's a really difficult thing to try and navigate through. So just some simple examples of that this is the way these things show up. So from here, I'll move into part 2, which is speaking the truth. So this part probably just makes a little more sense to most people. Most of us in our culture, we put a value on speaking truthfully and on honesty. That's pretty important to most folks in our culture, which is good. But then there are some subtleties to it, as you can imagine, and I'll get into some of these. One story, speaking the truth is important, but it's not always speaking the truth, but how you speak the truth, or how much of the truth you speak. And this is just kind of a silly story, but I have a friend who, there was a little boy, he was 11 years old, and he was talking to her, and not somebody she knew well. So little boy is talking to her, and he starts complimenting her. He said to her, I think your hair looks nice. And sometimes 11-year-olds will say stuff like that. It's like, oh, thank you, that's sweet. So he said, I think your hair looks nice. And then he said, and I think your dress looks nice too, and your jewelry. And then he paused. This is an 11-year-old kid. And then he paused and he said, but your shoes are horrible. So he was being honest, he was telling what he felt was the truth, but he, as he gets a little older, that might not go over so well with people he says that to, if he's in relationships or things like that. But she thought it was hysterical because, of course it was. Just to have an 11-year-old say things like that is funny. So from the handout there, part 2, speaking the truth. Speaking the truth is essential, but the way we speak the truth is important too. One of the 5 precepts, which we've talked about a few times, and so many of you are at least vaguely aware of them. One of the 5 precepts is to abstain from incorrect speech, and one of the practices on the Noble Eightfold Path is to use right speech. So there's 2 really core teachings in the practice, the 5 precepts in the Noble Eightfold Path, and both of those focus in quite a bit on the way we speak, right speech and abstaining from incorrect speech. So from the teachings in the canon, abstaining from incorrect speech consists of abstaining from lying, which is probably what most of us would think right away. And it also includes abstaining from divisive speech, which I think is an important one. And we sort of get regular reminders of divisive speech when we pay attention to politicians who are talking. A lot of times they might be talking about something they're for, but at the same time there's real divisiveness in the way they're speaking. We are also asked to abstain from abusive speech. So again, this is another one that probably makes a lot of sense. It's just not good to abuse other people. To verbally abuse others is very painful, causes a lot of damage, sometimes lifelong damage. So abusive speech is something that we should abstain from. And then idle chatter. We're also asked to abstain from idle chatter. Idle chatter was considered problematic because it doesn't further the goal of the practice, and it's considered a waste of time when one is trying to attain nibbana. Nibbana is that word for finally being free and liberated from suffering and from its causes. Part of this, too, is that this particular chunk of the teaching was given to people who were in a like a retreat setting, meditation, long-term meditation retreat setting. And so, idle chatter in that type of environment is definitely not helpful because it's just taking people's minds in all kinds of directions. So we were asked to abstain from idle chatter. The characteristics of right speech. Now we're moving from the 5 precepts, which were things to abstain from, to the characteristics of right speech, and those are as follows. It's spoken at the right time. It's spoken in truth. It's spoken affectionately. It's spoken beneficially. And it is spoken with a mind of goodwill. So I really like that. There's certain times where you become aware, this is the truth, but it's just not the right time to say this to somebody, There's maybe another time that's more appropriate. Sometimes it is the right time, but it's an important part of our development in all these perfections and in our practice in general is to be mindful enough of knowing, is this the right time to say what I have in my mind? Or maybe it isn't. Maybe I should wait. So characteristics of right speech, spoken at the right time, spoken in truth, and then spoken affectionately. So we're speaking to people, even if they're not super close to us, we're speaking to them with a heart that is affectionate. There's a kindness there. And so that really changes the way we're speaking to people. It really tempers it. People can tell when you're speaking to them with just a loving kindness. So that speaking affectionately is very beneficial. And it is spoken beneficially. So it's spoken in a way that I'm communicating this to you because I want to help you, or I want to make you feel better, or I want to save you some time or trouble. So the things we're talking about, we're trying to help others. And then it's spoken with a mind of goodwill. So just at the base of all of that is this feeling, I hope you're well. I hope you're well. I hope you're well. And that, that's a real thing. We really feel it. So then, truthfulness and right speech is a mindfulness practice. With mindfulness, we practice on the cushion. We're very aware of the breath and the body and the sensations and so forth. But then as we get up and we just navigate through the day and we're living our lives normally, the teachings ask us to maintain a degree of mindfulness. So sometimes it might be fairly intense if maybe you're out for a walk, and so you're walking mindfully. You can actually do walking meditation, for example. Maybe you're washing the dishes and you're using it as a mindfulness practice, or eating an orange or drinking a cup of coffee. There's all sorts of ways to do that. But the teachings ask us to, in general, try to maintain a degree of mindfulness. And if we do that, before we speak or act, we become aware that we begin with some thought, with some desire or some intention in the mind. And then this intention manifests as word and deed. And this is also in line with the meaning of the word kama, or as it's often pronounced, karma, which the definition of that, a simple definition, is action driven by intention. So we speak with an intention to communicate something, to change something. We speak with an intention. And so that's important, because when we intend to do something, If we cause harm to another, well then they're experiencing suffering, and so are we. So here's a little series of verses from the Majjhima Nikaya, and so this is instruction, detailed instruction on how we can determine whether we should speak or not. So the first one, in the case of words that the speaker knows to be unfactual, untrue, unbeneficial, or not connected with the goal, unendearing and disagreeable to others, he or she does not say them. So that seems pretty straightforward, pretty obvious, and pretty much in line with our pre-existing cultural ideas about truthfulness. In the case of words that the speaker knows to be factual, true, unbeneficial, unendearing, and disagreeable to others, he or she does not say them. So just going back to those shoes are terrible, as a funny example, this to that little boy was true. I like your hair, I like your dress, your shoes are terrible. To him, true, but if it isn't beneficial, if it isn't helping somebody, maybe we don't need to just walk around pointing out, things that are true. So there's kind of got to be a purpose for it. I want to tell the truth, but when I speak, there should be a good reason to speak. There should be something beneficial in what it is. Otherwise, even if it is the truth, well, then I shouldn't say them, And just, there's all sorts of simple examples, but, in the case of words, this is number 3, in the case of words that the speaker knows to be factual, true, beneficial, but unendearing and disagreeable to others, he has a sense of the proper time for saying them. So maybe you need to admonish somebody or correct somebody for something that they're doing wrong, and you know that they might take that, a little hard, and so there's a sense of the proper time for saying that. A time where you know that they'll probably take it in stride and receive the benefit from it. And then number 4, in the case of words that the speaker knows to be unfactual, untrue, unbeneficial, but endearing and agreeable to others, he or she does not say them. So it does no good in the long term to say things that aren't true just to make somebody else feel better, because then we end up dealing with the consequences of that non-truth. And number 5, in the case of words that the speaker knows to be factual, true, unbeneficial, but endearing and agreeable to others, he or she does not say them. The key word in here is unbeneficial. So again, it might be true, but if there's no point in saying it, why say it? You might run into somebody you haven't seen for a few years, and you might say, wow, you look a lot older. Maybe that's true, but if it's unbeneficial, don't say it. Or even if it's something that might be agreeable to others, if there's no point, don't say it. That's what's being suggested here. And then the 6th one, in the case of words that the speaker knows to be factual, true, beneficial, and endearing, and agreeable to others, he or she has a sense of the proper time for saying them. Why is that? Because the speaker has sympathy for living beings. So we could probably paraphrase that down to speaking the truth, but speaking the truth when it's helpful and it's going to do somebody some good, and then, even then, choosing the right time to do it, and then abstaining from negative speech or speech that causes division or speech that divides friends, things like this, and we forget we abstain from those. So that's the conclusion of the teaching on the perfection of truthfulness. Anybody have any questions or thoughts or? Yeah.
There's something called suffer and persist. Where you know that there's something wrong, but you say nothing. And it's maybe you're suffering from it, but you persist, like maybe slaves in slavery. I mean, there were a lot more of them than there were white people down south, but they couldn't do much about it.
Mm-hmm.
You know. I mean, they did have few uprisings,
Mm-hmm.
you know, because they were unarmed and whatever. But I mean, and I think that Martin Luther King and Gandhi, they did what you're talking about. They spoke at the right time. But
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and sometimes we can't. And that's probably true, you're mentioning slavery. I think it's true in a lot of employment situations too.
Yeah,
where,
that's where it's used.
Where, most folks don't have the luxury of just being able to choose whatever job they want and replace the job they have anytime they have a disagreement. So there is a lot of that, I don't feel this is just, I don't feel it's...
Like the women that got sexually harassed.
Right.
And stuff,
Yeah, exactly.
Fox News and stuff.
And even though they knew that was absolutely
stood
wrong.
Up, and the floodgates were opened,
Mm-hmm.
Bill Cosby, the same thing, It's like how many people suffered and persisted because what were they going to do?
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. Well, we have, anybody else have any thoughts? I like that though, suffer and persist. It's definitely something we experience. So these perfections, again, these are aspects of our character that already exist, but these are ways of kind of honing them and fine-tuning them so that they're of the greatest benefit to us and to other people around us.
You'd be wise like Buddha or, not everybody can sit there and just think of, like Buddha somebody would say something to like some of the stories that you told and he would come up with, why do you, like with the one with the warrior, that story about the warrior coming up and... And that's a real tough one. Think about that. If I was only going to speak because there was a specific beneficial reason for me speaking, think about how much we just kind of chit chat during the day when we see each other about stuff. And hey, you going to the fair to see the eclipse? It's just. Yeah, technically that's idle chatter. Yeah.
However, I see that there's a social benefit in that, that it gives us a chance to talk to people and kind of get to know our neighbors, and so small talk can be important. So with some of that, that abstaining from idle chatter, I can see that as being something important in the midst of a, intense spiritual practice period, where you're just really not going to talk unless, like when I would go to the long-term monastic retreats, the only time you were allowed to speak is if you were speaking to one of the teachers and you had a question, specifically about the practice. And that was the only talking you were allowed to do. But in that context, it was very beneficial, because otherwise you'd be talking about all sorts of things, and talking is just a huge distraction for us. So to limit your speech down to what they call noble silence, it's really, then you're starting to kind of fine-tune the mind and work with these reoccurring thoughts, reoccurring patterns, and one of them is the way we tend to want to speak. Just, boy, I I don't like to be quiet. I like to keep talking, you know. So not always, but sometimes that's the case. So it's kind of fun when you meet someone who is also practicing this way, and it's okay to just be silent together. You know, it's okay. There's an old Zen parable, kind of a short one that touches on this a little bit. There was a senior monk out walking with a novice monk, and the novice monk pointed and said, "Look at the beautiful sunset." And the senior monk said, "Yes, and what a shame to say so." You know, so that was kind of his...
Interrupted his...
Yeah, yep. So sometimes I think about that, kind of that noble silence. The beauty was observed. It was just that the novice monk was so used to, you know, gotta talk about it, get reinforcement. Any other questions on that? Well, I would like to do a short practice rather than starting on the new one, the Aditana. There was a short practice that I had put on one of the handouts, and that was probably 3 weeks ago or so, but I never did get to it. So this will be a perfect time because it takes about 10 minutes. So I'd like to just share a little practice with you. This is a little bit of a guided imagery practice, which is different from what we normally do, but these can be real helpful. Real helpful in times of sleeplessness, real helpful in times where you're particularly stressed out or feeling kind of afflicted by difficult emotions. So this is a helpful one. This is called Open Sky. And so we'll just do it together. It'll take a few minutes. You don't have to do anything formal with your sitting, but it might be helpful to just get a little bit comfortable. You can let your eyes close. And then I'll just start to share some thoughts and some images with you. And I just ask you to try and be as in the experience of these images as you possibly can to get the benefit of this practice. So just really let yourself be in it. So we'll begin by you are out walking on a beautiful day like today, sunny, warm, not too hot, not too cool, just a beautiful day. And you walk and you're outside and you find yourself in the middle of a large field. And there are wildflowers growing and there's grass and it's just a beautiful rolling landscape around you. It's just this beautiful field of nature. And it's so wonderful that you decide to sit down in the middle of this field and rest. And then after a few minutes you decide to kind of stretch out and you lay down on your back and you're just looking up at the sky. As you're looking around, you notice that kind of in your peripheral vision that there's trees at the edge of this large open field, kind of trees on all sides. And as you look up, you notice that the sky is just blue, beautiful powder blue, no clouds in the sky whatsoever. And just really see if you can feel, just imagine what it would feel like if you were there. Feeling of the flowers in the grass, under your skin, under your body. The sound of insects chirping, buzzing. The sound of birds in the trees nearby. Maybe the sound of the wind as it's kind of blowing through the trees and blowing through the tall grasses and flowers around you. And maybe you can even smell the smell of nature, just the beautiful smell of being outside. So you're just fully engrossed and focused on this beautiful scene where you are. And as you're looking up at the sky above you, again, the sky is blue. And you have a thought that comes to mind. And it's kind of a troublesome thought. It's something that you would put out of your mind. It's something that maybe is a little bit of a worry. And so this troubling thought comes up. And suddenly you feel like this has taken over the beautiful experience of being outside. But what you can do as you're looking up at the sky above is take that difficult thought, that difficult emotion, take that and place it in the blue sky over your head as a cloud, a little puffy cloud in the sky. And then observe that cloud, that thought cloud, observe as it slowly passes across the sky above you. Just observe it. You've removed this strong emotion from your mind, and you've placed it in the sky, and you're watching it as it slowly passes out of sight. And sometime later, maybe another challenging thought comes up, and you place that challenging thought in the sky as a cloud, and you observe as this cloud slowly moves across the sky. And you begin to become aware that you are objectively observing these different thoughts and emotions rather than identifying with them as being you or being something you're stuck with. You see these as movements through consciousness. You see these as movements through your mind. And you know that's true because these thoughts at some point just popped up. And these thoughts at some point just fade away. So because they are impermanent and because they are always changing, they are not you. They are not something that you're stuck with. And by placing these emotions or thoughts in the sky as clouds, it helps us to observe as they pass away. So we just watch. And there might be times where there's a lot of difficult thoughts or worries or emotions. And so maybe for a time there's quite a few clouds in the sky. And maybe for a time those clouds get dark. But again, we know this is something that I am observing passing through the conscious mind, right? So these are not self-elements. These are emotions, these are thoughts. They arose for some reason. They will pass away for a different reason, and they move through the sky of our conscious awareness. And let's say that there's a time for a few minutes where the sky is completely overcast. No longer can you see the blue sky. There's clouds everywhere, and maybe this is representative of how you feel in a particular moment. There's just dark clouds. But here's the thing. No matter how many clouds are in the sky, no matter how dark those clouds are, you know that beyond those clouds, the sky is untouched, blue. It is its perfect, clear nature. Doesn't matter what the clouds do, the nature of the sky is perfect clarity, perfect openness. And that is true of your mind. That is true of your own consciousness. Thoughts come up due to a variety of causes. Thoughts pass through the conscious mind, sometimes quickly, sometimes kind of stubbornly, slowly, but they move through. They always move through, And the nature of your mind is open, clear, perfect. So you allow these emotions and thoughts to move through your consciousness, watching them arise, pass overhead, fade into the horizon, move beyond the trees. And you really start to identify with that clear, open mind and the clear, open sky. And you find that anytime you're having one of these difficult emotions, anytime you're having an afflictive emotion or scary thought, that you can place it in the sky above. You can even label it when it's up there, and then just watch it. Focus on that thought and just watch it. How long does it really last? And sometimes you'll be quite surprised at how quickly these thoughts are replaced by other thoughts. The things we think are on our minds all the time and are very afflictive and painful and difficult, in many cases, they only last a few seconds. But we're not aware, we're not paying attention to their arising and passing. So begin to see yourself as this clear, blue, perfect, open sky. Thoughts arising, passing through like clouds, sometimes thick, sometimes lasting longer, always changing, always moving, and that you are this untouched, perfect awareness, pure consciousness. So just sit with that image for a moment, really feeling that outdoor experience in the sky. Feel the helpfulness of seeing those difficult emotions as being outside of you and as being non-self elements. Just feel that. And then I think I'll lead us into our closing 4 Brahma Viharas, since we are at the end of our time. So feeling good as we are now, peaceful and calm, we cultivate compassion. And maybe tonight it's easy to cultivate compassion by considering the plight of so many people down in Texas and now in Louisiana who are battling the floods and the great upheaval in their lives as a result. You know, we know how much we value home. We know how much we value consistency and stability. And so we can see the suffering, the real suffering that these people are experiencing, and we can cultivate and just outpour tremendous compassion. Tremendous compassion. May these people be free from suffering. May they be free from suffering. And then we cultivate this wonderful capacity we have for joy, loving kindness, loving kindness. May all these people, and not just the ones in Texas and Louisiana, but may all beings be surrounded by love and kindness. May all beings be joyful and happy. May all beings be equanimous, which means that they are free and they have a degree of wisdom in the mind that lets them not be stuck in craving or clinging or aversion, but that they're able to be truly free. And then may you folks tonight, sharing this place with me, I just appreciate you so much, and I wish for you the greatest happiness, the greatest peace, and the greatest freedom. Namaskar, everybody. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
So next week we'll start on Aditana Parami, perfection of strong determination. So I hope to see you for that.